the heart of the harsh northern lands, a saga unfolds about 4 Viking warriors, chosen for a mission fraught with peril and mystery. Their goal is to find Odin's spear, a legendary relic lost to the ages during a titanic battle between gods and giants. Legends claim that whoever possesses this spear will wield boundless power over the realms of men and gods. Leading this squad is Njord, renowned for his ruthless strategy and tactical genius. His team includes Ingol, the embodiment of strength and fearlessness, Dag, a wise cartographer whose knowledge of ancient lore is unmatched, and Burr, the youngest of them, agile, curious, and always eager for new discoveries. Bound by clan ties, they had endured countless battles and adventures, yet nothing could prepare them for the trials that lay ahead. Upon receiving this fateful quest, they meticulously prepared their longship, loading it with essential supplies, deadly weapons, and maps containing hints at the relic's possible location. The first month of their journey was marked by sailing treacherous seas, where they faced furious storms and the uncertainty of their destination. In the second month, they reached an island shrouded in dense forest, where they found game and fresh provisions, but also encountered unexpected hostility. A group of natives, their bodies covered in red paint, attacked them, and Dag was wounded by an arrow. Despite this, the Vikings managed to emerge victorious and escape before reinforcements arrived. In the third month, an ancient lighthouse towering on a mysterious island caught their attention. As the sun reached its zenith, the tower's shadow formed the shape of a spear, an unmistakable sign that they were on the right path. They landed on the island and began exploring its abandoned ruins, establishing a more secure camp, but the ultimate answer still eluded them. The fourth month brought new challenges and dangers. During one of their reconnaissance missions, they were captured by a group of nomads who dominated these lands. Detained on suspicion of trespassing, the nomads observed them without revealing their intentions. However, using their cunning and wit, the Vikings managed to make a daring escape, and during their flight, they discovered a hidden cave at the base of a mountain. Following their intuition, they entered the dark and winding cavern, unaware they had trespassed into a wolf den. A fierce battle ensued, the beast's sharp teeth tearing at skin and armor, leaving the warriors wounded but alive. Bleeding and exhausted, they began their ascent to the summit of the mountain that loomed before them. From the peak, Dag, despite his pain, smiled as he gazed at the horizon and exclaimed with conviction, "We are on the right path." The journey was far from over, but their goal, Odin's spear, drew nearer with every step. What else awaited them beyond this mountain? What mysteries and dangers lay ahead? A cold wind pierced their faces as they advanced across the mountain peak. The fatigue from the wolf battle still weighed heavily on their bodies, but something relentlessly drove them forward. Njord, leading the way, was the first to notice ancient runes carved into the rocky ground, arranged in a pattern that seemed to tell a forgotten story. Some were worn by time, but others faintly glowed under the sunlight. Dag knelt, tracing the symbols with his calloused fingers. Some of the inscriptions he knew, but others were unlike anything he had ever seen. "This isn't just a path, it's a message," he murmured, narrowing his eyes. "Something is sealed here, or someone left a warning for those who dare to proceed." Burr stepped back slightly, surveying the surrounding landscape, and then he saw it. On the horizon, beyond the mountains and the distant sea, stretched a land unlike any other. The sun here seemed to shine differently, bathing the vegetation in an almost ethereal light. Rivers cut through lush green fields, feeding waterfalls that cascaded in silvery mists. Trees stood tall, with wide canopies and majestic trunks, as if they predated time itself. No signs of war, destruction, or danger, just a place that seemed to exist outside ordinary reality. "By Odin!" Burr burst out, pointing at the sight before them. The others joined him and fell silent for a few moments. Was it real, or were they gazing upon a reflection, an echo of the god's realm in the world of men? Nuud, ever the strategist, was the first to regain his composure. If the runes point in this direction, then that is where we must go. But then a sound echoed. A deep, low thud vibrated through the ground beneath their feet. Then another, and another. The earth vibrated, sending small stones tumbling down the mountain. Birds that once filled the blue sky took flight in panicked disarray, as if fleeing something even the gods feared to name. Ingel clenched his fists, his muscles tensing. That's not the wind. Another rumble, this time closer. Nuud drew his sword, his eyes scanning the surrounding landscape. Whatever it is, we are not alone. What awaited them beyond the mountain, and who or what lurked in the shadows amidst the valleys of this unknown land? The final thud was the most deafening, a roar that seemed to tear the very earth, making the mountain tremble beneath the warriors' feet. Then from the shadows between the rocks, it emerged. The giant was an abomination of ancient times, a creature so vast its presence eclipsed the sunlight. Skin as thick as ancient tree bark, muscles sculpted by time itself, eyes like burning coals in its scarred face. Every step made the ground cry out, every breath exhaled hot vapor, and when it raised its weapon, a tree trunk carved like a club, the four understood they faced something that could end them with a single blow. "Scatter!" Nuud's command thundered, his tactical genius already scanning the space for a vulnerability that didn't yet exist in reality. In response, the monster erupted in a monstrous roar, spewing pure rage, and unleashed its first devastating strike. Under the colossal force, the ground trembled, rocks shattered, and the warriors were flung aside like autumn leaves caught in a gust of wind. Ingel, recovering first from the shock, brought his axe down on the monster's leg with a furious swing. However, the blade, which had sliced through countless foes before, left only a minor scratch on the giant's skin. Dag, dodging a monstrous attack, swiftly moved to the flank, trying to assess the situation. "We need a strategy. A mindless charge won't win this for us." But time was catastrophically short. The monster, like an enraged bull, lunged at Nuud, who managed to leap aside at the last moment. A powerful blow struck the rock, dislodging a massive chunk that rumbled down the mountain slope. Had that blow connected, the warrior leader would have become but a faded memory. Burr, always distinguished by his unparalleled agility, swiftly scaled the nearby rocks from where he had a view of the monster's gigantic figure. His gaze frantically scanned the monster's body, searching for weak points, knees, Achilles' tendons, neck. But everything seemed impregnable. With frustration, he clenched his fists. If penetrating that armor was impossible, the only option was to distract the beast. "Hey, you massive beast!" he shouted from above, hurling his spear directly at the Colossus's face. The spear's tip merely grazed him, but it was enough to capture the giant's attention. The monster let out a deafening roar, its eyes fixed on the young warrior, and in that moment, Burr saw what he was looking for, the eyes. Yes, if this immortal beast had a weakness, it was there. The monster, consumed by rage, raised its club and brought it down with ferocious power on the rock where Burr stood. But the youth, in a desperate leap at the last moment, landed on the monster's arm and scrambled up its body, like a hunter pursuing a bear. Reaching its shoulder, he felt the giant try to grab him, but it was too late. With a cry of determination, Burr plunged his blade directly into the giant's right eye. The monster let out a soul-rending shriek of pain, clutching its face with both hands. The blow didn't kill it, but it opened a breach in its armor. Nuud, instantly assessing the situation, knew this was their chance. Ingel and Dag, acting in concert, charged. The first blow struck a leg, making the Colossus stumble. The second to its side, slicing through flesh. Nuud, moving lightning fast to the other side, struck the tendon of the other knee. The giant tried to react, but its own immense size played a cruel trick on it. Under its own weight, it lost its balance, and by the time it crashed to its knees, its fate was sealed. Nude leaped onto its back and plunged his blade with all his might into the back of the monster's neck. Ingel, wasting no time, brought his strike down on the giant's chest, piercing its thick hide with his blade. Dag, with a nimble lunge, slit its throat, while Burra, still on the monster's shoulder, wrenched his bloodied blade from its eye and plunged it directly into the beast's forehead. The giant trembled one last time, its death roar echoing through the mountains before fading. The colossus crashed backward, vanquished. The four warriors, gasping for breath, retreated, covered in blood and dust. They had won. But at what cost? Nude, carefully wiping his blade, gazed at the distant land where a golden glow still shone. Odin's spear awaits us. The giant's massive body still lay on the ground, its flesh cooling in the piercing mountain wind. The scent of blood and dust permeated the air, but the four warriors exchanged glances filled with relief. They had looked death in the eye and emerged victorious once more. Ingel, with a satisfied grin, wiped his blade on his garment. "If even giants fall before us, who can stop us?" Burra, still catching his breath, chuckled. "Perhaps a dragon, or maybe Thor himself will descend from the heavens to test us personally." Nuud, always known for his prudence, did not allow himself to fully succumb to euphoria. "We must not lower our guard. We still have a long way to go." Dag, who had been meticulously studying the runes on the ground, merely nodded in response, but his face conveyed deep concern. He traced his fingers over the symbols carved into the stone, trying to decipher the words left by the ancients. A warning was contained within them, something that deeply troubled him. "We are close," he murmured, "but something tells me the next trials will be far more complex than merely swinging swords and axes at a flesh and blood enemy." For a few moments, silence settled over the group. Nude, taking one last look at the golden horizon, made a decision: we descend at dawn. The sun had not yet fully risen when they began their descent from the mountain. The path was steep and treacherous, forcing them to move with extreme caution. Loose stones made every step risky, but after several hours of walking, they finally reached the base. The land here was completely different. The scent of sea salt grew stronger, mingling with the aroma of exotic vegetation that surrounded them. In the distance, the golden island shone like a treasure forgotten by the gods. The contrast with the rest of the world was so profound that it seemed this place did not belong to the same reality as the mortal realm. "This is no mirage," Burra whispered in awe. "It's real." "Too real," Dag corrected him, still feeling uneasy. They headed towards the shore, where their longship still bobbed on the calm waters. The crossing was short, but filled with anticipation. As they approached the island, they felt the air change. It grew lighter, yet at the same time filled with something indescribable, as if an unseen presence watched their every move. As soon as they landed on the shore, the vegetation almost instantly enveloped them. The leaves were vibrant green, the tree trunks seemed older than time itself, and the sounds of nature were unlike any forest they had ever been in. Instead of familiar bird song, they heard only a distant whisper, as if the earth itself was murmuring forgotten stories. In the shadow of colossal rocks, as if nature itself had erected an impregnable fortress, Nude pointed to a small clearing, declaring, "We will make camp here." He explained they wouldn't stay long but needed a respite to regain strength for the journey ahead. Without wasting time, the squad set about establishing a temporary shelter. Ingel, like a vigilant guardian, took charge of securing the perimeter. Burra, skilled in matters of fire, built a bonfire whose dancing flames cast whimsical shadows. Dag, immersed in his mystical pursuits, spread out maps and runes on a flat stone, attempting to decipher their hidden meanings. Njord, like an experienced tracker, meticulously surveyed the surroundings, searching for the slightest signs of danger. After fortifying themselves with pieces of dried meat and enjoying the warmth of the fire, Dag broke the silence, saying, "I have meticulously studied the inscriptions, and they all point to this location. However, there is something strange. These clues were not left by chance, but intentionally by someone." Burra, raising an eyebrow, asked, "What do you mean?" Dag explained, "Perhaps we are not the only ones hunting for Odin's spear, and if we are this close to our goal, then the dangers are far from over." A sudden gust of wind swept across the clearing, and for a moment, each of them felt a chilling shiver run down their spine. Dag's prophecy proved ominously accurate. Something awaited them on this island, and it had no intention of showing mercy. Like a mournful wail for the departed, the wind howled as the four warriors reached the hilltop. Before them stretched a clearing, like a lost corner of the world consumed by the relentless march of time. At the heart of this clearing stood the grim remnants of a castle. Shattered walls, collapsed towers, and massive stone gates split in two, as if by a blow of incredible force. Njord was the first to break the silence, his voice low and cautious. If this place was once magnificent, now only a shadow of its former glory remains. Burra, gazing warily at the ruins, observed, "It looks like something destroyed this castle from within, as if some entity broke free from it." Dag, lost in thought, silently contemplated the ancient stones for a few moments, feeling the unseen weight of the place. Then he murmured, as if to himself, "This is the Castle of Broken Bones, the last location marked on the maps, the final clue we must decipher." Without the slightest hesitation, the warriors began their descent. With each step closer to the ruins, a sense of unease swelled like a thick fog. The air grew denser, imbued with an energy that sent shivers down their spines. It seemed as though something still breathed within these walls, even if it wasn't a living creature. Overcoming a pile of debris that had once been a gate, they found themselves in the dark heart of the castle, at an entrance leading to underground depths. A dungeon with blackened walls and the putrid stench of decay beckoned with its ominous unknown. "If anything will lead us to the spear," Njord said, peering into the gaping void of the underground corridor, "it's what lies within." Silently, as if by unspoken agreement, they lit their torches and headed into the unknown. Inside the dungeon, the warriors were met by a long, narrow corridor, where the air was heavy and the silence almost absolute. Only the crackle of their torches and the echo of their footsteps broke the oppressive quiet. As they advanced, the tunnel widened, revealing something far grander, a colossal cavern hidden beneath the castle for centuries. It was a sight fit for fallen gods and kings. The vaulted ceiling vanished into darkness, supported by columns resembling giant bones, as if the cavern's very structure had been carved from the carcass of some ancient beast. The floor was covered in a low, slowly shifting mist, as if it possessed a life of its own. Throughout the cavern, arranged in neat rows, lay hundreds of coffins. Some were stone, adorned with forgotten runes. Others were of black wood, saturated with dampness. There were coffins sealed with chains, and others with lids slightly ajar, revealing rust-covered armor and decaying bones. "This place," Burra whispered, clutching his torch tighter, "this is no ordinary tomb." At the very center of the hall, on a stone altar, lay a weapon, golden like the sun itself, majestic and gleaming despite the millennia. Odin's spear. Njord swallowed hard, his throat dry. Even Ingol, known for his fearlessness, couldn't help but feel the gravity of the moment. Before them lay the object of their quest, an artifact capable of altering the fate of men and gods. But there was something more, Directly beneath the spear, ancient runes glowed faintly in the torchlight, forming an ominous inscription, "The sacrifice of 3 is the power of 1." The silence in the hall became even more ominous. None of the warriors dared to take the first step. Finally, Dag broke the silence, uttering, "This is a warning. To possess the spear, a price must be paid." Nude frowned, his face resolute. "We have come too far to falter before words carved in stone." He stepped forward, and in that instant, the world seemed to explode with a scream. The sound was like a thunderclap, reverberating throughout the cavern. Coffin lids flew into the air, and figures rose from within. Long dead warriors whose flesh had been consumed by time, but whose eyes still burned with an eerie blue fire. Their armor was rusted, their swords notched, but their intentions were unmistakably clear: to protect the spear at all costs. An army of Draugr had awakened from eternal slumber. The warriors found themselves surrounded. These were not mere individual foes, but an entire horde. Ominous creatures advanced on them, gnashing their teeth, brandishing jagged blades and broken axes. Burra, instinctively recoiling, cried out in horror, "Gods!" Ingil, gripping his sword with both hands, let out a furious battle cry, "Then let us dance, you wretches!" Nude took a leading stance, shouting, "We must not let them encircle us." The hall transformed into an infernal battlefield. With every swing of a sword, Draugr fell, but more and more kept coming. They felt no pain, showed no retreat, and knew no fear. The Viking warriors were accustomed to fighting men and beasts, but they had never faced those already consumed by death. The altar with the spear remained untouched, but the price they would have to pay to reach it remained in question. Perhaps only one of them was destined to emerge victorious from this deadly struggle. The battle unfolded to the accompaniment of steel and the harbinger of imminent doom. Hordes of Draugr, as if risen from the earth's depths, descended upon the 4 warriors with relentless fury. The grinding of bones, the whistle of rusty blades cleaving the air, merged into a cacophony of chaos that filled the entire space. Dag, Nude, Burra, and Ingil, united by a common purpose, fought valiantly, yet even their hardened skill could not tip the scales in their favor. The Draugr were not merely reanimated undead, but immortal warriors driven by ancient hatred and an instinctive urge to protect their most prized treasure, Odin's spear. With each fallen foe, new ones rose from the grim crypts lining the hall, ready to continue the fight. The Draugr's fury seemed inexhaustible, and soon the blood of the living mingled with the dust and ominous mist that enveloped the battlefield. The battle raged for long hours, testing the warriors' courage and endurance. Nude, distinguished by his fearlessness, decapitated a Draugr with a single, precise strike. But before he could savor the triumph, another foe attacked him from behind. The Draugr, wielding a broken sword, tore through his armor, and the screech of metal echoed through the hall. Burra, with his accuracy, struck down 2 opponents with a single swift motion, but with each new wave of enemies, he felt fatigue seizing his muscles. The warriors' resilience was admirable. They did not flinch, did not retreat a single step, fighting to their last breath, understanding that only the total annihilation of the enemy would give them a chance at salvation. Ingil, relying on his brute strength, crushed the bones of Draugr, but even in his eyes, weariness was evident. It seemed the battle would never end, and the shadows would continue to spew forth new and horrifying abominations. But finally, when the last Draugr collapsed to the ground, the hall plunged into an ominous silence. The battlefield was strewn with fallen bodies. The 4 warriors, wounded, bloodied, breathing heavily, sat on the ground, drained of strength. Their swords were stained with blood, their armor torn, and their wounds bled. But a taste of victory hung in the air, and the burden of battle finally receded, replaced by profound exhaustion. It was at this moment that Burr's gaze inadvertently fell upon the runes carved into the stone, an inscription they had not noticed until now. "The sacrifice of 3 is the power of 1. The words flickered in the torchlight, and the seemingly safe atmosphere was once again filled with a sense of impending doom. Dog broke the silence, his voice deep and laden with tragedy. "I knew it. I knew a sacrifice was inevitable." The other warriors stared at him in astonishment. "You knew?" Nude demanded, his voice accusatory. "You knew only one of us was destined to survive, and you kept silent about it?" Doug, closing his eyes, calmly replied, "This is no time for recriminations. Each of our fates was sealed the moment we embarked on this quest." Rage boiled within Burr. "So what does this mean? We're here, exhausted and wounded, and you say you knew about a necessary sacrifice. What now? Who is to die, and who is to live?" Ingel, frowning, stepped forward. "We have no right to choose. We must focus on the goal. Odin's spear awaits us, and only one of us can claim it." A fierce argument erupted, like an approaching storm. Tension mounted as each tried to comprehend the meaning of this sacrifice and how they should proceed. Words intertwined, giving way to shouts and mutual accusations. "I will not die in vain," Nude exclaimed, clenching his fists. "I have endured so many trials. I will not surrender here." "It's not about us," Dog countered. "If we don't make the sacrifice, our goal will remain unattainable." Burr's eyes filled with tears of frustration and anger. "So who will be chosen? Who is worthy to survive? We can't decide this." "I can't." The night stretched endlessly, but the warriors could not reach an agreement. Dog's words continued to hang in the air, and finally, after much debate, a decision was made. It was heavy, unfair, but the only possible one. Burr, with a desolate gaze and a mind clouded by the weight of the decision, felt inevitability descend upon him like a heavy shroud. From the very beginning, he understood that this mission would demand more than just courage and self-sacrifice. Relentless fate would determine who lived and who fell. He looked at his companions, Nud, Ingel, and Dag, and saw in them the truest friends one could ever wish for. But the pain of realizing he was destined to be the sole survivor, that it was he who was fated to pay this terrible price, began to gnaw at his heart. "May the gods forgive me," he whispered, his voice full of profound sorrow, his gaze fixed on the golden spear, gleaming on the altar as if awaiting him. Without a single word, the 4 warriors drew close, and in a final gesture of friendship and brotherhood, they embraced, demonstrating the unity of warriors who knew their paths would soon diverge forever. Each embrace was a farewell, a promise that wherever they ended up, Valhalla would welcome them with open arms. They bid farewell not with regret, but with the honor befitting those who had fought shoulder to their last breath. "We will meet there, in the feasting hall with the gods," Nude said, his voice full of faith before the blade of fate severed their connection to the world of the living. Ingel, closing his eyes in a serene smile, placed a hand on Burr's shoulder, as if passing on his brotherly faith. And then each of them made their sacrifice, falling one by one without fear, but with the certainty that their selflessness would not be in vain. Burr's heart ached with irreplaceable loss, as one by one his loyal companions fell, taking a piece of his soul with them. Unbearable pain constricted his movements, but he, overcoming his suffering, continued to steadily approach Odin's spear. This was the only hope of ensuring their sacrifice had not been in vain. However, before he could reach his coveted goal, a powerful, all-consuming impulse shook the ground beneath his feet. A dazzling, pure light emanating from the spear shone like the sun piercing impenetrable darkness. Unable to withstand this colossal force, Burr lost consciousness, collapsing to the ground. When consciousness slowly returned to him, his vision remained blurred, but he felt an unknown, powerful energy permeating his body. Overcoming his weakness, He slowly rose, his trembling hands reaching for the spear. The moment he touched it, a deafening crack pierced the air, and a wave of breathtaking visions flooded his mind. First, his three friends appeared before his eyes, now in Valhalla, free from earthly suffering and death, on a glorious battlefield. They were together again, fighting shoulder to shoulder as in olden times, with smiles on their faces, as if battle were an eternal dance. Their bodies exuded strength, their swords were sharp, and their hearts were light, freed from the burden of sacrifice. Bura watched them valiantly fight countless enemies, but in their eyes, the joy of victory always shone, a pure bliss transcending time and death. Suddenly, the vision expanded, and Bura found himself in a vast kingdom, surrounded by impregnable stone walls reaching into the heavens. He stood atop a high tower, surveying an endless field of warriors ready for battle. In his hand, Odin's spear rested confidently, his body clad in gleaming golden armor, and in his eyes, now filled with serenity, wisdom and leadership qualities were reflected. He was a warlord, a ruler, a genius behind strategy. Odin's spear radiated powerful energy, filling the air like an unbreakable force field. He watched his warriors march to the sound of war drums, ready for engagement, while in the background, the majestic castle of Valhalla loomed like an eternal fortress. There, he ruled not just a kingdom, but a legion of valiant souls who followed him with unwavering faith. Despite the grandeur of the vision, a profound yearning pierced Bura's heart, an unbreakable bond with the friends who had given their lives to bring him here. The pain of loss still gnawed at his soul, but now he understood the true meaning of their sacrifice. He had gained the spear's power, but his heart had to beat in unison with the honor of those who had accompanied him on this arduous journey. As the vision faded, Bura knelt. Tears streamed from his eyes. He had achieved what many could only dream of, Odin's power, dominion over a kingdom and its warriors. But he knew the price he had paid for it was immeasurably high. He gripped Odin's spear tightly, which had now become an extension of his own soul, and with a final breath, looked towards the heavens. Wherever his friends were, he believed that somewhere they were still fighting together, just as before. Filled with resolve, he prepared to rule with the honor of 3 warriors in his heart and the power of legend in his hands.